Hey everybody out there, this is Seto, and today for you guys we're going to be talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! Drafting. Now this idea came from a fellow viewer and subscriber and also came from my own experiences playing draft recently in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! In the Yu-Gi-Oh! Off-season, me and my friends have gotten kind of bored of playing against Gokis and Sky Strikers and whatever have you. And yes, we're playing, our fun casual decks, but I got a group of about 10 friends together recently, and we actually just had a fun 2-hour Yu-Gi-Oh! Drafting at locals. It was really fun and super easy to do, super cheap. It maybe took me 15 minutes to set it all up, and we had a blast doing it. We're going to discuss about that and how Yu-Gi-Oh! Can make a comeback using drafting. But the first thing we're going to talk about in this video is how actually Yu-Gi-Oh! In the past, if you guys are not familiar with this, has actually even tried to implement drafting into the competitive scene and into Yu-Gi-Oh! Itself as a mainstay. Why did that fail, and where did it succeed at, and why it can maybe come back in the future? So, when did this all happen? Well, a couple of years ago, back before we had Megatins, back before we had Battles of Relentless Revenge and all that stuff, we had something called Battle Packs. Now, Battle Packs, this happened around the time that we had Wind Up Zen Mighty, Dino Rabbit format, things of that nature. Tour Guide was a very popular card at that time. And Konami, before the Yu-Gi-Oh! 10s were released for that year, back I think it was in 2011, 2012, somewhere around that era, they released something in the summer of that year called Battle Pack. Now Battle Pack, if you guys don't know, was literally the first Yu-Gi-Oh! Official draft in Yu-Gi-Oh! They came in regular box sets, but they also came with a playmat, and you would get each 5 packs and you could do drafting with your friends. So it was trying to introduce drafting into the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! While also putting in these battle packs good staple cards, cards that needed a reprint for the most part, and cards that were chase cards, such as Tour Guide from the Underworld was in here. It's a star foil rare and I think a common. But they were very hard to pull. Like, you could open a whole bunch of battle pack product and you would not guaranteed to actually pull a Tour Guide. But this was the first time that Konami tried to implement drafting into the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! A year later, they released, because Battle Pack was such a renowned success, they released the second Battle Pack, War of the Gods, which initially was focused on tributing in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! So while the other one was just about wombo combos and different good cards and things, the second Battle Pack was more geared, it felt like, to drafting in Yu-Gi-Oh! Per se. And actually required, you could tribute monsters to bring out the Egyptian gods. And the Egyptian gods hadn't had a lot of good reprints up to that point in time, so this was their first real good reprint that was to the masses. And even still, with their original artwork, I should mention, even still, they were very hard to pull, even up back then. But Konami started implementing something around this time frame. They tried to implement drafting into the competitive scene, actually, during this time. Now, we may say, well, what do you mean, Seto? What are you talking about? What do you mean implementing drafting into competitive Yu-Gi-Oh? What they were trying to do was simply this. Take Yu-Gi-Oh! Drafting, like you have in Magic the Gathering and all those type of things, and implement it into the top cuts of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because, as they said, and from what I remember the article, because it was a big discussion at that time for competitive players, was they wanted to find the best, well-rounded duelist in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! To be their YCS champions. That's literally verbatim, just what they were pretty much saying in their blog post when they announced that. I think it was the top 15 cut with a top 32 cut would be going into draft format. So they would give you your battle packs, your epic dawns, whatever the case may be. You drafted them out and you actually had a draft to win a YCS. And competitive players picked up on the product because to top a YCS, to get good, you actually had to learn how to draft properly. This was something completely new in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And a lot of competitive players and a lot of players in general did not like this idea. They believed in the conception, because this had always been the way in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! That if you're going into a major event, that the deck you bring, it should be the deck that you top with. Not winning through a draft or randomness of drawing good cards out of the pack or drawing bad cards out of the pack, whatever have you. So it was quickly done away with after about a year or half a year, I believe it was. And then after that, we had the last Battle Pack come out, which really, from what I've talked to people about, they didn't like it. It didn't really have good reprints, and it was based around elements. And levels didn't matter, and elements didn't matter. It was very weird. Now, I recently, when I was setting up this Yu-Gi-Oh! Draft, talking to some Magic the Gathering players, and they remember playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Draft. They actually enjoyed it, but they said what killed it, they felt, was that last battle pack. Konami tried to do too much and get way too innovative with drafting. They just didn't make it simple enough. You know, they just didn't focus on a good draft set. They focused on multiple different other things. You know, they tried to focus on putting good reprints in there to sell the product, which is good, and they understood that. But they also, at the same time, felt that that hindered the product. They felt that they should really focus a set on drafting, just period. And just, you know, good, decent cards, or good, powerful cards. And players themselves would eventually warm up to the idea if they just were, if it wasn't just forced upon them into these major events to implement drafting in competitive play. Players would actually, you know, eventually shift towards it. And if you ever played in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Draft format or Magic the Gathering draft, it can be really, really fun. I've done that before, and like I said, I recently did it with Yu-Gi-Oh! And it was really, 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 really fun, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. However, like I said, I can see, and I remember from back in the day, how much of a pressure that can be on competitive players and just players in general. That if you top a major event, you gotta go to draft. You can't play with the deck that you brought with you. That's not right. So, what did I do when I was playing this draft with my friends? What did I do exactly? Well, it's pretty simple what I did. I literally we took a huge bin, or as you guys can take if you have Yu-Gi-Oh! Tins or Yu-Gi-Oh! Boxes, of just a random assortment of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. Random assortment, okay? So we took a 10, for example, we could say a 10 here, Yu-Gi-Oh! 10 I have, or a big bin of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. We took them out. We made sure that there was no like random good cards that were in them, like broken cards that have gone up in price. But like your staple, maybe your common Mirror Forces that we really don't use anymore, but it's still a good card, you know? Your common MSTs we would keep. And maybe some good cards, you know, I'm not going to use a secret Injection Fairy Lily, but like maybe a common Injection Fairy Lily from a old battle pack 1 and 2. You know, things of that nature we would put in these piles. And we shuffled the piles together and we broke them down into 20 cards apiece. And we literally did drafting. Each player at the table got 20 cards apiece out of this huge set of cards that we broken down. We put random cards in there, like the Calculator, random Tribute to the Doom, Trap Hole, Bottomless Trap Hole, 18, 17, 19 Beat Sticks, Snipe Hunter, random cards that, as a player, I knew and other people knew was considered a decent card. If there was a card I was unsure about, I would read the card text, I could see this could be a decent card in a non-competitive format. I put it in the pile. And we broke them down, and we gave each person, I think it was 30 cards, and we passed them around to all 10 players. So I get one deck, I choose one card, give it to the player on my left. And we did that until we each had decks of 20. Now the reason we did decks of 20 is because somebody suggested, and I think it's a great idea, to build decks of 20 just like Duel Links. For once, I agree with Duel Links. If you're doing drafting, draft a deck of 20 cards. So we drafted out of the 30 cards a pile. We took 20 out of them and we passed them around to each player. So each player got to choose what they wanted. And we even broke it down that, you know, players could play individually, one-on-one with another player. Or, number 2, we actually did tag teams. We did I think it was a 5-on-5. And it got crazy, but it was crazy fun. Like the Calculator on a 5-on-5 duel can become ungodly attack. I think we had it above 10,000 attack. Like it was above 9,000 attack. It was something like above 9,000. We were making the meme from Dragon Ball Z. It's above 9,000 with 10,000. Whatever it's been years since I've heard that meme. But literally, that's what we were doing. Like we really randomly just had this fun. We would go, my turn, I go first, and the player across from me goes first, and the player next to me goes next, and then back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it was fun. Oh my gosh, it was so fun. Any players that played with me that night understand how fun that was playing that night. It was amazing to do that drafting. And it's so easy to do this in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Nowadays. It's so, so easy. All you need is just, you don't need Konami to make the product. Just take a box of cards and just random commons that you don't use anymore that are just sitting in the corner, or a bunch of commons that are just at your locals. Just grab a pile of them, sort through them until you have maybe 50, 67, you know how many people are playing, you know, cards. You break them down and then you deal them out into 20 cards a piece, and then you just go around and play with your friends. I actually, which I had, so I had it looked down, but I actually still have, and I keep in this pile, this plastic bag here, the cards we actually played with draft. And we didn't even put them in sleeves. Who cares? They're just random old commons. And so let's take a look here at some of the stuff that we actually put in here. We had, this is stuff I actually need, but we randomly just had some random cards in here. I'm just taking some of these things out because they're not supposed to be in here. But like, for example, we had Mobius, okay? And we had Giant Trunade. We actually put Heavy Storm in one of the decks, and somebody had 3 Heavy Storms in their deck, but he only got one of them off because somebody negated one of them with Magic Jammer. But we have like Giant Trunade, for example, blow all your back row away. Mobius, destroy back row. Regeki Break. Grinosaurus, which is actually from the first battle pack. Just random things like, you know, want some beat sticks, Blazing Impachi, 8,050 attack. Like, just generically good cards. Like, hey, maybe somebody found a dragon that they want to search out, so we put a, you know, 1 or 2 masked dragons in the deck. You know, cards that are like, nobody's going to really care about, you know, a lot of these cards here. They're never going to get played. They're just going to sit in a box for, you know, the next 50 years and will be thrown away. Nobody's going to use them, so why don't we just use them for drafting? Like, Swords of Revealing Light can be broken in a draft format setting, especially in a tag duel. Like, we had basic things like Fissure, just 1-for-1 removal, like basic Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And for me, playing these old school Yu-Gi-Oh decks, you know, it just being around the game of Yu-Gi-Oh for so many years, you kind of pick up on what makes a good card good and what makes a bad card bad. Which cards that would be good in slower formats but not good in faster formats in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh. And it's so easy to duel. And if you guys like this video a lot, I will most graciously do a video or two of me and my friends just drafting in Yu-Gi-Oh, just showing you how we do it. Like, we ran the most craziest things like Tremendous Fire and Mage Power, like just decent, you know, okay cards with decent effect. Like, we threw a Reckless Greed in there and somebody picked it out because they got the +2, but they couldn't attack. And we put a Cyber Dragon in there and somebody special summoned Cyber Dragon, and then he tribute summoned Mobius, and then he blew up a back row, and we had a Ryza in here. We even had Horus the Black Flame Dragon level 8, which is a good common, but we threw it in there, and we threw, I think it was a 2 level 6s, not the level 4, with no level up, and somebody actually leveled up into level 8, and it was a pain in the butt to get around. But you see what I'm trying to say. Just a stack of good common cards that nobody's going to ever play. You know, they're just commons. And just go have some fun with your friends at Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, you see that. That's about 100 commons that I found of just good staple cards. Dole them out into piles of 20 and just pass them around the table. And there you go. You know, and there's your Yu-Gi-Oh! Draft. It's simple as that. Now, should Konami and could Konami implement this into Yu-Gi-Oh! Back again? I think they should. Like I said, a lot of Magic the Gathering players said, I would play Yu-Gi-Oh! Draft again if they did it. Because they love drafting. It's one of the most favorite things. And it builds better players in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because you learn. In this game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Day of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's very simple. You activate a card, you automatically get the effect usually. You activate this card, you get the effect. You negate an effect. It's simple. You're not working for your pluses as much as you used to in older Yu-Gi-Oh! In modern Yu-Gi-Oh! You're not doing that anymore. You're sometimes using tech cards and things of that nature, but you're not using them as much as you used to back in the day. We use engines a lot more than we used to back in the day. We used the plant engine, we used this engine, the dino engine, but we just splash them in because they just help this deck perform better. We don't try to tech them in to certain dual decks, I guess, nowadays compared to the old days. Like, and I'm not saying we didn't use engines back in Yu-Gi-Oh! We did. We really did a lot. It went away for a bit because we went into archetypes, but they weren't archetypal engines, if you get what I'm trying to say. They weren't like Brilliant Fusion engine with Garnet we put in this deck. It was, we put Glow Bulb and Spore because, you know, they're not an archetype, but they're, you know, a plant engine. So the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Has changed that way, but it helps you better utilize cards, better define cards that you can use in different formats because you get to, you've played these before. Like, hey, I remember how good Swords of Real Light was way back when Heavy Storm was banned and MST was at 1 of, you know. So I get to learn how to play old school Yu-Gi-Oh! And I get to learn how to freaking just be a better duelist overall because I get to utilize my cards and get the most bang for my buck out of my cards. And in a grind game in Yu-Gi-Oh! Sometimes, which does happen, the better player that knows what he's doing and works for his resources and works for his pluses will usually come out on top usually. Unless he has to crack a big board and he can't get around it because of such and such reason. But yes, try it out. And if you guys want me to, I'll record a video of it. So thumbs up the video if you would like to see me do a Yu-Gi-Oh! Draft with my friends. We would gladly do that. Until next time, take care. Have fun dueling. Good luck dueling. I'll see you all you guys next time. And remember guys, even though you want to play competitively, it's always nice to have fun playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Take care everybody.